Good morning, everyone. This is Sarah with Harrisburg Project. Today we're going to go over the personnel approvals. We have a new due date for those this year, so we have plenty of time. This is a repeat session, so we did not get a recording before. We will be recording today. We will have that published on our website probably early next week, so if you need to come back and watch anything, you'll be able to do that. If you do have questions during this session, you can ask them in the questions pod. I'm happy to answer those as we go through the session. If they're very specific and it's going to require looking up, a particular employee's information, just call in or send us an email after the session. Sometimes it's difficult for me to answer some of these questions without looking at the credentials for a particular person. So if they're super specific, just call in after the session, please. So I did upload our handout. So if you look in your GoToWebinar menu under the handout section, you will see that. If you can't see that menu, you're looking for a little orange arrow, click on that and it will open up your flyout and you'll be able to see the handout for today. So we will go ahead and get started. And today we're going to go over the personnel manual. We had some changes this year. We're still working through some of those changes, making adjustments as we go. We'll look at the personnel approvals. We'll talk about what status codes mean. We'll look at how to get to your error reports. Of course, a look at our website and then how you can get support when you need help on any of these topics. So first of all, we did have some changes to the personnel approval manual this year. This was updated in March. The first thing that is new is that our due date this year is July 31st. So that used to be due on June 30th. So now you have an extra month to work on personnel approvals. So July 31st is our due date this year. In addition to that, we had changes with work assignments. So we have some new work assignments and we have some deactivated work assignments. So with those, some of the work assignments were deactivated because we didn't need to collect that data anymore. So we didn't want you doing extra, more than you needed to do if the data wasn't being used for our federal report. So some people no longer need to be in iStar at all. Now, the new work assignments kind of combined some of the old ones. So some of the related service work assignments that were there are combined and should be reported differently now. So we have a combination of what actually took place. Now, with that being said, all of you know that we can try to test here at Harrisburg Project and make sure that everything is good to go before it's released, but we don't really know until we get it out into the field. And so, okay, so I'm going to start at the top because I don't know when I went out. So the manual was updated in March. The new due date is July 31st. I think I got that across. Now, the work assignments, there are new work assignments, there are deactivated work assignments in our new release of this manual. So the purpose of this was to first combine some work assignments into new ones. The second purpose was to eliminate some work assignments where the data was not used. So we didn't want you to report things that were not necessary. So again, we've had some kinks going through this, especially when we get it out in the field. You guys are always the best testers anyway. So now that we have had it out there for a while, again, this has not been a huge issue. We've just had a handful here and there, people we've had to work very closely with. So, it is kind of a work in progress still. We've got a few outstanding matters, but when we look at those and the number of personnel that are affected, it's usually kind of a problem that's just only one person. So I think we're getting closer. But anyway, it's required a little bit of patience to get through it. But again, we have, some of you I know are my veteran people here. We've been through really large changes that affect maybe every student and things like that. Yes, this was a little bit of a pain, but it wasn't a widespread pain. So, okay. All right, so these were the new work assignments. We did eliminate a lot of the bilingual work assignments. And for a lot of these, you're going to see that if you had maybe something more specialized before, it's just not as I don't know the word to say. It's not going, it's going to be broader now than it was before. And that's just kind of how the whole thing is going. I know that we have a lot, like SLD was eliminated, and they just want the LBS one now. So kind of things like that, where it's a broader work assignment than before. So these were the ones that were deactivated. You can see there were a lot deactivated. And the problem is that we aren't sure, because of staff turnover, we aren't sure always until we just dig into them which ones they eliminated because they no longer need the data versus reporting them in a different manner. So we're slowly learning, that maybe they still want some of these, but there's that broader code that covers multiple deactivated work assignments. So again, we're learning case by case, and really the bilingual ones are so rare that it will probably take us a year or two to even have an example of each one to replace with something new. So just a glance at what was added, what was removed. So to get into your personnel approvals, you'll go to approvals and claims, personnel and approvals. You'll notice there is no claims fly out for personnel. We do not have a claim in iStar for personnel approvals. So there is no longer a claim. We haven't had a claim since the 15-16 school year. When you get to your search, you're going to see a reported tab and an unreported tab. The reported tab, if you were to come here and just hit search with no criteria in the filters, it would show you all of the staff members that you have entered into iStar for the 23-24 regular term. We do not collect personnel data for summer term or a term of both. It's just, did they work in the regular term? On the unreported tab, you could see people who have been uploaded in your educator information system as having special ed position codes, but you don't have a record for them in iStar yet. That could be an indication you need to add them into the system. Sometimes it could be a mistake in EIS. So you just kind of have to make sure, use your own discretion as to whether you should be adding those people all the time. Sometimes people get aggravated because their unreported tab isn't blank. Well, we're relying on the EIS system being accurate. So that was where you would go if they don't need to have a special ed position code. So they can be, they can be qualified to teach special ed, but if they're not doing that in their work, then they don't need a special ed position code. Adding a new person into iStar is fairly simple compared to adding a student in. You don't have to have as many details. What I recommend is if it's a fairly uncommon name, like my name is probably pretty uncommon. So you could search by my last name and maybe just put SA in for first name, and odds are you're going to find me. Okay. But if you have a more general name, a John Smith or something like that, then I would recommend you get the IEIN number to make sure that you are adding the correct John Smith. It's very difficult to distinguish with the data that is given to you. Even in an Ellis search, it's very difficult to tell the difference between those people. So the IEIN you should be able to get from your business office because I'm pretty sure that you have to have that. They have to have that to run payroll. This is what the approval record looks like. It's very small compared to the student approval record. For our federal report, what we're looking at mostly was the person you're entering employed with your district on December 1st of 2023. Remember, we're only concerned with regular term. What you'll want to do is add the work assignment. So you click add in the middle, select the work assignment from the drop down, select the FTE, and then click save. Now, we don't have begin and end dates in personnel. So if you had someone that did not work for you the entire school year, then you will adjust the FTE. So sometimes you may get a call from another district and they may say, hey, we have an overlap. You both are getting errors on an overlap. And they may say, you know, we had them from August to November. We're going to put a 0.3. And you can say, okay, well, I'll adjust mine to a 0.7. So we don't want them across the state to exceed a 1.0. And until you correct that and the other person corrects that, you're each going to have an error. So typically they just work together. It is an estimate because it's a drop down. You're only able to go to the 10th, but there is an actual calculation if someone is going to get, you know, particular about it, but it's still going to be an estimate. So most of the time people just work it out together through a conversation or an email to make sure that there is no overlap. So again, it's regular term only for this 23-24 school year. So if you had someone that started with you this summer, you would not enter them. Okay. As far as your paraprofessional work assignments, ISB does need to report the amount of time that is spent by the aides with the pre-K versus the K through 12 population. So if for some reason you have a program aide that works in the, say they work in the morning with a kindergartner and in the afternoon with a pre-K student, we would just need to show 2 entries for the work assignment, and the FTE would be 0.5 for each to show the time spent with the different age groups. Now, the next question I always get on this slide is, what's the difference between a program aide and a teacher's aide? So the program aide is the person that is the one-to-one aide. Actually, it's very confusing. I know that the terminology is not helpful. They are not licensed, whereas a TA is actually a teacher's assistant, and they are licensed. So they are able to provide instruction. So I know that these headings are not helpful. So for program aides, they do not have to be licensed. They are typically the people who are helping at lunch, sitting with them in class, taking them to the restroom, getting them off and on the bus. Now, a one-to-one aide can be licensed. That doesn't mean that they're not. So sometimes people will say, well, all of our aides are licensed. It doesn't matter what they do. That's fine. The manual really wants you to report them based on their job duty, but sometimes they just report all of them as TAs if they're all qualified. I don't think that it really matters in the grand scheme, but you know, typically they're supposed to report what their actual job assignment is. So, and then your non-certified health aide, that's going to be like a non-qualified nurse or something like that. That's not actually a school nurse. Okay. Personnel approval for your status codes. You will not have to determine these. It will be based on the work assignment that you select, but it is a good idea to at least kind of recognize what these codes mean, especially if you're going to be doing orphanage claims, because a lot of times you're going to look over at your claim information and it doesn't bring the heading over, it just brings the letter over. So I always know if I'm looking at a program for kids that, you know, I don't want to see a related service provider on the program definition, those kinds of things. Okay. All right, I have a question about aides. Did you say they don't have to be licensed? Depends on their job duties. So a one-to-one aide, if they are performing one-to-one duties and not providing instruction, then they are not licensed. So, but some districts, all of their aides are licensed, but typically, like the definition of the one-to-one, if you're going to use that PA, is that they just have training experience. They do not hold licensure. So, but that doesn't mean that it limits what they're able to do as a PA. The TAs can be a one-to-one, and they can help provide instruction alongside a teacher, where the PAs are not supposed to do the instruction portion. So depending on their job duties, they do not always have to be licensed. Okay. So we do have some air checking on personnel. It's not as vast as the student, but we are also looking not just at errors, but we're looking at qualified versus not qualified when you enter work assignments. So what you need to know is that even if you come up with a not qualified status, it will give you a warning. You can kind of view it as being disapproved, obviously, but it does not prevent us from forwarding on that data to the feds in our report. So the report takes qualified and not qualified staff. So it doesn't mean we're not reporting it. Okay, it just means that we are going to give a warning. They are somewhat disapproved as far as what they're doing, but we're still going to report the data. So typically, the errors is the only thing that's going to stop that on either side with student or personnel. So it's the same thing here, but just because you see a disapproved doesn't mean that that's a showstopper for the reporting. Okay. I have another question. All our parapros are certified. It's off. That's common. I mean, the instructions in the manual are that you need to classify based on job assignment. So, I mean, you can have teachers that are qualified to do things that they're not doing. So, they've made it to where, you're just kind of putting everybody in as an LBS now. So it's broader, don't get me wrong, but the typical rule of thumb is you put in based on their job duty. If you have all of them in, if they're all certified, you have them all entered as TAs, I'm not telling you that it's, a must that you go in and change all of them. I don't think that, honestly, I don't think it really matters whether you do or don't. But I don't want, then again, I don't want that to be a blanket because with other roles, we need to make sure that is their job assignment. So the only thing that makes it difficult for me if I'm helping you is if I see a TA and they're a one-to-one, I may say, hey, what are their job duties if we're working on a claim? Because it would appear to me they're a program aide, that they're a classroom aide and not a one-to-one when they may be just a qualified, or I'm sorry, a licensed one-to-one. But I'm not telling anybody to go in and change a ton of data based on that, because I don't think in the grand scheme that it affects anything. I don't think it's worth your time. I would spend it elsewhere. But many, many districts, all of their aides they hold the TA, they hold licensure. Okay, I'll take any other questions that any of you have. I apologize for my sound hiccup. I think that we can still get a recording out on that. We'll just have a little blip. So I will hang around for any questions that you have, but if you need to get going, I will see you at the next session. The recording should be posted Monday or Tuesday, I would say. To access your personnel list, you'll go under approvals and claims, personnel approvals. It's on one of the slides in the session. It shows you how to get to your list. And you'll just hit search without any criteria and see who's on your list. Okay, I don't see any other questions, so I will let you guys get, and I hope you all have a good weekend, and we'll see you at the next session. Bye-bye.